Oh, this is Nick Wright, who is president of the LeBron 2024 GOAT campaign. All right, presenting his case in what he believes no one actually wants to say about Michael Jordan.
Before Scottie Pippen got there, a total and complete loser. Not just never got out of the first round, not just 1-9 in the playoffs, never even above 500 in the regular season. Can I have point number 2, please? Larry Bird, the best player when he walked into the league. You know how many times Michael beat Larry in the playoffs? I don't mean in a series. I mean in a single playoff game. The answer to that is 0. But wait, there's more. In Jordan's entire career, there were 3 super teams in the East. The Celtics, the Pistons, and the Magic. His career playoff series record against those 3 teams, 2-6. But against everybody else, 23-1. Speaking of the East, which Chris Broussard mentioned in regards to LeBron James, once the Pistons were gone, do you know how many teams in the East, Jordan's entire title run, had more than one Hall of Famer? 1. The team Michael was on. He had Pippen, and then he had Pippen and Rodman. And then the last point Broussard loves to make, which is we pretend Jordan's career was 6 years long. Everyone ate on Michael's watch. We just pretend it didn't happen. Can we show guys who won rings in years Michael Jordan played? Well, Larry won, Kareem won, Magic won, Isaiah won, Hakeem won, Drexler won, Shaq won, Kobe won, David Robinson, Tim Duncan won. I'm not even including the years Michael retired.
He's gotten to that point to where he thinks he's making really good points, but he's talking like a guy in present tense talking about past day. This is the mistake we make in politics, right? It's what I really don't like about politics. I understand that we have beliefs that we write down, that are in journals, that are part of our upbringing. But do you believe the exact same thing now as you believed 20 years ago? And the answer is probably not. Like, it's one of the things like 30 years ago, you were in the Senate and you voted for, like, yeah, okay, but let me contextualize. But no, it doesn't matter. Yes, it actually does. Okay. When Jordan first got to the league, we also have to remember there are far fewer teams than there are now. Okay. What was curiously omitted is, and this is where Nick, he's just not old enough to know, right? He just doesn't have that database. Like, go back to the 80s, and what did he leave out? Like, he's talking about the dominant teams in the East. He left out the Philadelphia 76ers, who won a title and lost in the finals in the 80s as well. They had Dr. J and Bobby Jones and that whole team. And then later they added Charles Barkley. They weren't great. Dr. J was over the hill then. Okay? He's not discussing, people forget the Atlanta Hawks had Dominique Wilkins, who was a Hall of Famer, and Doc Rivers and other guys. They were never a great playoff team, but they were kind of like the Houston Rockets, where they won a lot of regular season games, scored a lot of points, but could never beat the Celtics or the Pistons or the Sixers or the legit teams. I mean, there were so many fewer teams that when you were buried at the bottom, you were buried at the bottom. By the way, there's no mention of the Cleveland Cavaliers, who were they were a really good team, but they could never get past the Bulls, right? Like, he didn't mention that in 88-89, the Cleveland Cavaliers won 57 regular season games. They had a loaded roster. And that team would stay together for a couple of years. Could never get past them. The East was better than the West. There weren't as many watered-down teams. Michael Jordan was the greatest scorer in the league, was the best defender in the league. He had a crummy team. And let's not act like when they added Scottie Pippen, all of a sudden they became a winner. Scottie Pippen was an NAA player that it took him about 4 or 5 years to shed the label of being soft. Like, we're simply going back and seeing The Last Dance and going, oh, well, he played with Scottie Pippen, who's a Hall of Famer. Like, Scottie Pippen was never in the discussion of being in the Hall of Fame until they started winning multiple championships. And he had one good year when Jordan retired, and then the thing started to fall apart. Like, the league was completely different. Completely different. He walked into a disaster of a franchise. There weren't the bottom feeder teams trying to be bad the way that teams try and be bad nowadays. You had to try and be good. The Bulls were not. And no, they didn't win right away. He also missed his entire second year. That's when he played those same Celtics in the playoffs and had 44 and 63 in back-to-back games. It was arguably the best Celtics team ever that won like 66 games and marched through and won an NBA championship. You know? And he's doing it because he's trying to, on some way, elevate LeBron James. Like, okay. They had the great run in his first finals run with Cleveland was amazing. But that's really more what the East was about then. The East was about one guy getting hot, carrying his team. That's what happened with Allen Iverson. The East has been awful. And then in addition to the East being bad, with the exception of the Heat one year when they won a title, he joined the Heat, and then he took the best player from the Toronto Raptors, combined with the best player from the Heat and his services, and then eventually they got Ray Allen as well. Dude, look, what are we even talking about here? Yes, LeBron in year 17 was fantastic. At the exact same age, Michael Jordan was still the best player in the league and won an NBA title. Then Michael Jordan chose to walk away. Let's see what happens for LeBron now. You can tell me that in your mind, LeBron's a better foundational piece or something or other. Okay. Should be pointed out, they didn't immediately win last year. It took a while and reconfiguring and a new coach and another star player in order to get him to win in LA. And if we're just going to be result-oriented, then we would say that there were failures when he was in Miami. By my estimation, Miami was a stunning success. Yes, they loaded up and depleted the rest of the East and won 4 straight Eastern Conf. But get to 4 straight NBA finals is pretty outstanding stuff. Pretty remarkable stuff. To get to the finals every year he gets back to Cleveland is pretty remarkable stuff, even if, again, the East was fairly weak. Right? Indy hit reset. Boston hit reset. Miami had to reset because Chris Bosh had the blood clots. Like, let's be honest about what happened. And if you want to hold Orlando beating him against Michael Jordan, that's fine. But he wasn't playing basketball. He's playing baseball. He joined the team midseason. And anybody who actually watched those games knows he wasn't sharp, and Orlando was a loaded roster that probably would have won championships had they managed to stay together. Nick Anderson missed 4 free throws at the end of game 1 against the Rockets, and he was never the same. They never had another shot in that series. Yes, other people won NBA titles because they were on better teams. You know, I mean, people forget when he got into the league, the Lakers had Magic and Worthy and Kareem and Byron Scott and Michael Cooper and Michael Thompson all on the same team. The Celtics had Larry Bird and Robert Parrish and Kevin McHale and Dennis Johnson and Danny Ainge on the same. They had Bill Walton was on the team on the same team. They didn't have to create super teams. There just weren't as many teams, so guys didn't have they didn't have stragglers. There was free agency, and you could, but the only guys that were available in free agency were guys well past their prime. Like, again, if we are honest about this, Magic Johnson signed a 25-year contract with the Lakers. 25 years, $25 million. It was the biggest contract, and it was like, that's amazing at the time. It's a completely different sport. Jordan signed a long, 10-year deal. Pippen signed a 10-year deal. So, yeah, none of them have ever done it with 3 franchises. You know why? Because no superstar has ever gone to 3 franchises. Hardly any of them go to 2. Obviously, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is 1, and he won a title with both of them. But we can do this. He is unique. He is a trailblazer. He has done things that others have not. That does not make you necessarily better than others. It just makes you different. And his success through longevity is amazing. It is remarkable. We would also point out the travel is better. The game is not as physical. You take power forwards completely off the floor, and you take some centers off the floor as well. And and the way the game is officiated is different. That shouldn't take away from his greatness. It just should paint a real story of context.